Thank you. It's a pleasure to continue after the start picture you drew for us. So Yavuz wanted me to talk about something with a human dimension, and I said, why don't I talk about people who had to leave Turkey, given the circumstances. So to anyone who lives in the UK, the fact that there is a major wave of migration out of Turkey must not come as a surprise. The official numbers estimate that in the last 5 years, close to 20,000 people came to Turkey, and I imagine there are even more people who are here as students, who are not, who have not yet settled here.
United Kingdom, not to Turkey. You said.
Oh, sorry, United Kingdom. Sorry. So, of course, Turkey has long been a country of immigration, and the UK has long been a destination for 100 years. Even Boris Johnson's great-grandfather, Ali Kemal, fled to England in 1909. But the numbers have increased dramatically in the last few years. So the number of people who leave Turkey are massive. According to official statistics, more than 300,000 people have left. But more than these numbers, what is interesting is who is leaving Turkey and why, and also what is happening to these people. So this has been covered in the major news outlets in the last couple of years, New York Times, BBC, German media. We know that the best educated and the most wealthy groups are leaving Turkey. Most likely the poorer ones and the less educated ones want to leave also, but they are not able to get visas and they don't have the means to leave. So reasons behind it are obviously the economic turndown is a major reason, and the increasing political pressure on all kinds of opposition in Turkey, especially since the 2016 failed military coup attempt. But now even people who have no political problems with the state, if they are not in the inner circle of the palace, want to leave Turkey, even if not for themselves, for the future of their children. They're frustrated by random political persecution, they distrust the judiciary and the arbitrary law, and deterioration of education and business climate and lack of meritocracy are among the reasons why people are leaving. Even though some may interpret the economic and the political motivations of the people who leave Turkey as two separate issues, they are actually the same thing. Or at least they are caused by the same short-sighted decision-making process, mediocrity, nepotism, lack of transparency and accountability is what leads to problems in economy and politics. So Yavuz already talked about the political crisis that pushes people out of Turkey, or at least those who can. He already talked about how 150,000 people have been sacked from their jobs, from public sector employment without an investigation. 50,000 citizens have been detained prior to trial. What is really important in all these cases is that they also have lost the right to seek for their rights. So Hannah Arendt, who wrote about totalitarianism based on the German experience, tells us we cannot determine which right is more important than any other right. One can say, no, this is the right to freedom, one can say the right to education, the right to have access to law, what have you. She says the most important right individuals have is the right to have rights. So when you cannot go and ask, why did I lose my job? Why can't I have another job? My passport is taken from me. On what basis? If you don't have the possibility to ask for these questions, then you have lost your most important right. And this is also what people in the Turkish government have even said. We will subject these people to civil death. we will make them worse than they have died. One public officials have said, let them eat tea, the roots of trees, so that we will not give them anything. We will deny them of all resources. So what does it mean, and what is the difference between really actually pursuing and killing your citizens versus just letting them die and excluding them from all the public life and acting as if they are dead? So this is not something only Turkey is doing. Right now, maybe you're following what is happening in India, in Kashmir. It is being done. China is doing such policies. And also, there are minor examples, like the United Kingdom did that to, if you have followed Begum something, a British citizen joined ISIS, and she lost her citizenship. So after the Second World War, there was this concept that the states cannot make their citizens lose citizenship, and also the states will protect their citizens' citizenship rights. So overall, we are entering a new phase where citizens are denied of their citizenship rights. But Turkey is one of the leaders in this, in the numbers of the persecuted people, the speed at which, and also how fast, for example, it is not only the people who have alleged to have ties to, in creating public unrest, either to Gülen organization or the PKK or other leftist organizations, but also their relatives also lose their passports or under investigation. So by the sheer number and the speed at which this loss of rights is growing, Turkey is leading the race, let's say. Okay, so it is not only people who are at risk who are leaving Turkey, but also people who have money are leaving Turkey. So it is not only judicial unexpectancy or losing the rights, but also the right to keep wealth is also under question. Where do I have the number? In the last few years, according to Financial Times, Turkish government seized worth of $11 billion of assets from nearly 1,000 companies. So this is yet another huge thing that is happening. It is quite rare that governments take over such amounts. Probably the last time it happened, it's during the Armenian genocide, and then during the 1955 6-7 September events. Probably are cases where such huge amounts were taken over by the Turkish state. So it really is something. Okay. But at the same time, it is not only people who are persecuted by the state are leaving Turkey, but also there are a lot of people who are just not unsure about what is happening in Turkey, so they're selling everything and moving their families abroad. So it is again reported that at least 12,000 Turkish millionaires and around 12% of the country's wealthy class moved their assets out of the country in 2016 and 2017, according to Global Wealth Migration Review. Most of them moved to Europe and to United Arab Emirates. The report listed Istanbul among 7 cities that experienced an exodus of wealthy people. A newspaper close to government, Sabah, reports that in the last year, 85,000 Turks purchased homes in London at an average price of £1 million. So if anyone wants to get into real estate business, this is the time. So one person bought an apartment worth £100 million in London, another one for £90 million in Knightsbridge. I mean, it is obscene, right, that such apartments exist.
Who is this?
Who are these people? That the names were not listed. Most likely they have a number of houses, right, in other places too. Of course, the consequences of this plight is very sad for Turkey, as the most skilled people are leaving Turkey, and Turkey itself is not investing in education. Its population remains lacking skills. OECD conducted a survey of adults in all OECD countries. Turkey ranked the lowest third among 32 countries. So 50% of the 25 to 34-year-olds have not completed secondary education, and 38% have no prior experience with computers. According to the same survey, only 12% of adults have level 3 literacy, which means that individuals can understand and respond to lengthy texts, can identify, interpret, or evaluate one or more pieces of information related to long texts. So it is, when we hear that 12% of the wealthiest people are leaving the country, and then the 12% of the people only have level 3 literacy, it says something. But then, actually only 1% of Turkish adults are proficient at the highest level, which involves problem solving in technology-rich environments. So we can see that 1% really left Turkey. When you meet people in London, they are bankers, people in creative industries, in computer programming, both people who have the technical skills, people who have creative skills. I feel like all actors and actresses are all psychotherapists, all translators, culture producers, journalists, and also academics. Also, the plight of academics would require another talk, but with the being dismissed from Turkey and also no hope of having qualified people to be employed in Turkey, it really is a major lack. So even though there are many universities in Turkey, I would say most are much worse than high schools or middle schools, let's say, in this country. So one way to look at it would be to say Turkey's loss is the UK's gain. Actually, the UK affords its austerity measures, let's say, in education, thanks to the fact that there are more and more increasingly authoritarian countries whose elite has to leave. There is so much creative energy, so much, let's say, innovation in this country, not because they have been investing in education, but because all the well-educated people of Turkey, also Africa, other Middle East countries, everywhere around the world is coming. So and also all these individuals who find their economies unstable also make massive amounts of money because of this instability, bring and park their money here. So clearly the Tory government sees this as an asset, but it is also a huge loss. Think about the massive amounts of interaction the UK and Turkey could have if those people could stay in Turkey, that if those actresses or psychotherapists or academics didn't have to be turned into waiters and waitresses or taking care of children here, then we could have real interchange and benefit cooperation. Thank you. This is what I'll say.